This is FX Medicine. I'm Andrew Whitfield Cook, and I'm here sitting with the Lucy Haslam, the person who put on UIC, who developed UIC, the founder of UIC, which is United in Compassion, and that's Lucy Haslam. And we're at the United in Compassion Symposium 2017 in Melbourne. Lucy, thank you so much for joining us today, and I've got to say, kudos to you. This is, I say glibly one person, but it's one family's experience.
Yep.
That has really changed the face of the need for a whole host of things to change with regards to access to medical cannabis. So I guess we start off, what's been the major crow, the major hoorah that you've gotten out of the 2017 symposium?
The major hoorah was definitely, I think, having Bastian Seidel here from the RACGP as president of over 30,000 members. For us, it's been a journey. We thought that there were some shortcuts to be had along the way to try and expedite access to medical cannabis, but in reality, it seems that that's not going to be the case. What we think now, in retrospect, we need to go back. We need to look at education of the doctors. We need to get the doctors on board to bring them with us on this journey. Otherwise, this journey is not going to happen. And that's largely because the policies and the regulations that the government has put in place are requiring it to be a doctor-driven journey. And our doctors sadly don't know about medical cannabis. At this stage, they don't know what they don't know. We need to bring them along on the journey, and the only way to do that is through education.
So what was the outcome of that meeting with the RACGP president?
Look, Bastian actually came to me a few months ago and said, look, Lucy, we're late to the table, but we're here now. What can we do to help? I think GPs are understanding that this is a dog's breakfast.
Yeah.
I think at one stage there was willful ignorance on the part of doctors. It was kind of, go away, do what you're doing, don't tell me about it, I don't want to know, you're on your own. And I guess the collective voice of patients over the last few years has grown and it's intensified, and more patients are going to their doctors saying, is medical cannabis an option for me? And I guess finally the doctors probably can't keep deflecting patients away. They are supposed to be caring for their patients. So I can see an attitude shift in the doctors now. I think GPs are central, they're key, and in this day of precision medicine, they're entirely the appropriate people to be looking after their patients on this chronic journey. I mean, cannabis is not just a stat dose and one dose and you're fixed. This is an ongoing journey with cannabis, and GPs are the people that need to drive it. So if we give them the knowledge and the power and the enthusiasm to drive it, then they will, I'm hoping, wrestle with the government and saying we demand the right to be able to prescribe cannabis for our patients. At this point in time, many of the government layers are saying that this is a requirement of specialists, and I think GPs, we all know, are specialists in their own field.
Yes.
And I think that they're critically aware of that now, and they're seeing that they're central. So I think that's the big hurrah moment for me, is knowing that Bastian came along to something that was very controversial probably in the eyes of many of his peers, but he's really looking beyond his peers now and looking at the needs of his patients, and that's what's important.
So I've got to conversely ask, what's been the biggest bash your head against a brick wall moment?
Our system is broken. Our system is broken. We've known it for some time. If it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, chances are it's a duck. And, if the government wants to keep on saying, this is not broken, this is, the pathways through the TGA have worked for many products, they're going to work for cannabis. Well, I'm sorry, they aren't working. So they either have to go back to square one and look at how they've set this up, and particularly in terms of patient access. And, that's where they can do a lot. There's a lot of wriggle room there. They can actually turn this around if the political will is there to do it. At this point in time, from our coalition government, I don't think the political will is there. For whatever reason, I think there's a fair bit of push from the TGA. Now, what's behind the push that's pushing the TGA to push against cannabis. We can only speculate, but my guess is Big Pharma's up there.
Right.
And, can I prove that?
No.
No, but we all sense it, and we're not stupid.
So education is key to this.
Yep.
What are the dreams of United in Compassion with regards to education? I've briefly spoken about this with Justin, but what are your dreams?
Well, I mean, Thursday was a great day for us. It was a real highlight with David Caldecott delivering the first Australian medicinal cannabis course for doctors.
Everybody smiles. Everybody gives a wry smile when they say David Caldecott.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite a day.
It's not a boring day. It's a good day.
It was quite a day, and as much as I would have liked to have been in the room engaged in the course, I was really on the periphery doing other things, but to look into that room and see so many patients completely engaged, many participants completely engaged in what was going on out the front of the room from start to finish, and it was a very long day, a very full program. That was something that was really exciting to me. To have doctors come out to me over the last couple of days saying, that was a great program, I'm really interested in helping you deliver that, because we want doctors to roll this out to their colleagues. As David said, doctors don't like to hear from other people. No. They like to hear from their own.
Brethren, yeah.
So if we can get that ball rolling and sort of organically bring this to doctors through their own members, I think that will be a very big thing.
Something that somebody explained to me the other day was that one of the sticking pins, if you like, of moving forward with direction or even acceptance by the health departments for patients to get access was the advice that they were getting from people that were actually ignorant on the use of medical cannabis. So we talk about education, we talk about the GPs, but how far up the line does that need to go? Do we need to be educating politicians, a health department, TGA indeed? Where does this need to happen along the way?
Look, I think it needs to happen at every level, and we've had doctors saying over the last couple of days that the extent of their education in cannabis has been, possibly broken down to as much as a statement somewhere in med school, probably fairly early on, that cannabis is a dangerous gateway drug that'll cause schizophrenia, and that's what's resonated with them. That's what's stuck in their brain, and
that was indeed something that you had. That's the framework you had, right? You weren't for cannabis.
Yeah, no, I came from that place, and you can't really be blamed for what you've been taught. But you can be blamed for not wanting to, when you know that there's a problem with that, and you know that that's controversial, but you don't seek the truth beyond that. So I think now in this day and age, and particularly with the internet and technology and communication around the world, you can't keep your head in the sand. And that's been what's happening to this point. But, now we're starting to see that there are doctors out there who do understand that there's got to be more to this. And I mean, the endocannabinoid system is a relatively recent discovery. Unfortunately, it hasn't made it into the course guidelines for medical students. Yeah. So it's
a whole new nervous system, if you like,
it
or
is,
protection.
And it's so important. So I mean, you kind of look a little bit foolish if you're ignoring a whole biological system. So I guess that's a starting place. If we get a few doctors hooked in, I have never ever seen anybody who's learnt about cannabis medically who has then gone on to say, oh no, it's a load of rubbish. Once you learn about this and you know that this is based on science and evidence.
It's more like an awakening, really, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's like the blindfolds have been removed. It's like the earmuffs have come off. And it's like, oh my God, I've been kept in the dark for so long. I've been misinformed. And, I've seen that continue to happen at a fairly high level in this country. And that's what really concerns me, is this continued misinformation. And I think we saw a really good example of that a couple of weeks ago in the Federal Senate when there was the disallowance motion that the Greens had towards Category A of the Special Access Scheme, where it went to a vote in the Senate room, and all of a sudden they're on the phone to the TGA, get the TGA down here, and they're in the ears of people like Pauline Hanson, who'd been she'd been campaigning quite strongly on a platform of support for medical cannabis, and all of a sudden the fear of God's in her. Oh my God, I better change my mind.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So this is what's going on at a very high level. So now what's driving that?
So this
I'm
really
not sure.
upsets me. Why do politicians, if they believe something, how can you change your mind, given that there are scientists here at this symposium showing us that what they're changing their mind back to is the old ways of misinformation?
Well, I mean, I guess this is the
That's
problem.
mischief.
This is the problem.
That's not ignorance.
There has been a lot of mischief. That's a really good word for this. There has been a lot of political mischief. Sustaining a lie and covering the truth is not a good way to develop public policy. So,
Particularly when we vote for you.
absolutely.
I think that's
absolutely.
the message that the politicians need to understand.
Yeah, and although I was sick on my first day, I believe Lou might have delivered my speech. That's one of the things that I said. If this has to become an election issue in 2019, then bring it on, because I think really we have the groundswell of public support. We know that we have the Greens. I know they're a minor party, but they really have driven this quite strongly from 2014, and now we have Labor. So
Can I add one more in there? You've got the patients.
absolutely. Public support. When we first started this in 2014, I was worried how we would be seen publicly. I thought that we might have got a backlash. But instead, it was quite the opposite. It was like the general public wanted to wrap their arms around us and say, we get where you're coming from. We know your pain. We feel your pain. We want to help. And that was at a really high level, up into, 97% at one stage in 2014. And I don't think it's wavered really from that.
No.
So, we live in a democratic society. Political mischief has been happening, and I think it really is time for it to stop.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's for these patients. We're an ageing population, and there are a significant amount in pain that aren't well controlled.
Yep.
Here's an option that's safe, despite what the mischief and the misinformation tells us.
Yep.
The change is needed.
Yeah.
So I've got to thank you, not just from a professional level, but from a personal level, just bringing together these calibre, this incredible calibre of researchers. Here's me tearing up again. I know, I'm shocker. But the education that I've gained here, I know that you've invited all walks of life, if you like, from political people right down to patients.
Should be the other way around. From political people right up to patients.
Thank you very much for putting that way, right up to patients. And indeed, kudos and honour goes to these people that have shown their face today, particularly those that are being harangued. But what I found interesting is that it was pertinent. I was interested in every single aspect of what was spoken on those stages by every single speaker. They had something for me to take away, to really think about, and indeed to use and to talk about and to use as a platform. So I've got to thank you from a professional and a personal level. So thank you very much for joining us and for being the beginning of UIC, to bring it to what it is today. So thanks, Lucy Haslam.
Thanks for having me.
This is FX Medicine. I'm Andrew Whitfield Cook.